On behalf of the Mumbai Research Centre of the Asiatic Society Mumbai, good evening and welcome everyone to this evening's book launch. May I invite people to come and sit on the dais. Dr. Vispi Balaporia, President of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, Dr. Shenaz Nalwala, Vice President and Chairperson of the MRC, Dr. Sadanand More, please, Shrimant Yuvraj Aniket Raj, Nayak Nimbalkar, and Sandeep Dahisarkar. May I now introduce the speakers on the dais, starting with Mr. Sandeep Dahisarkar. Mr. Dahisarkar is an archaeologist, art historian, and author based in Mumbai. He is also founder and director of Shilhara Heritage Services Mumbai. He has worked as a cultural consultant with the Holkar Cultural Centre, Maheshwar, Madhya Pradesh, an initiative of the royal family of Indore. He was also awarded the Gulistan Bilimoria Junior Research Fellowship 2017 of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai for the topic, The Cultural History of the Pathare Kshatriyas in the Bombay Presidency. His first book, Pathare Kshatriya of Bombay, was the outcome of this fellowship report. His new book, Parle Dhyanat Agyat, published this year, is a collection of research articles on the history of suburbs and Mumbai city. He has worked with the Department of Ancient Indian Culture and Archaeology, Satya College as an assistant professor, Department of History, Sophia College, and IES College of Architecture as a visiting faculty. He has designed new heritage walks like the two Villapale East statue of 4th, Bandra, Juhu, Devi Ahilyabai Holkar Maheshwar walk and has successfully conducted them. He was recently awarded the Sane Guruji Yuva Puruskar 2023 Mumbai and Yuva Sanman Puruskar 2023 Pune. Shrimant Yuvraj Aniket Raj Nayak Nimbalkar of Phaltan State. He has worked as a Senior Associate DMD Advocates, Senior Associate AZB and Partners, Associate Legacy Services Private Limited, Advocate Messrs. Avinash Ganu and Associates. He has completed his BSL LLB Symbiosis Law College, Pune. He is a member of the Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa. He has worked as advisor with various companies, banks, and schools. Dr. Sadanand More. Sadanand Sridhar More is a Marathi writer, poet, playwright, critic, historian, lecturer, and kirtan writer. Dr. More is a scholar of Sant Sahitya, Saint literature, and is an authority on Sant Tukaram. He is currently serving as head of the philosophy department at Savitribai Phule University, Pune, Maharashtra. He is a 10th generation descendant of Sant Tukaram. Dr. More has authored and edited many books on saints and social issues. He received many awards for his literary works, such as the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1998 for his book Tukaram Darshan. More is considered a thinker who enriched the cultural heritage of Tukaram Maharaj through his multidisciplinary endeavors. He also wrote a 2-volume Marathi book titled Lokmanya Te Mahatma, which was translated into English by Abhay Datar. Historian Ramachand Guha wrote the foreword where he described More's work as a colossal work of scholarship, at once very deep and extremely wide. Some of his literary works include the Gita, A Theory of Human Action, Krishna, the Man and His Mission, an inquiry into the rationale of interrelations between Krishna's life, mission, and philosophy. He is also an honorary fellow of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai 2019. Could I please request members on the dais for the book release?
Namaskar and good evening, everyone. Honorable dignitaries on dais, President of the Asiatic Society, Dr. Śrī Biṁbākhyāna, Vice President, Dr. Shahnaz Nalwala, Chief Guest, Dr. Sadananda Moreji, our special guest, Yuvraj Aniket Raj, dear friends and readers, I am indeed honored to be amongst you today in this historic place. The Asiatic Society of Mumbai has maintained its long tradition of creating and supporting academic scholars in the field of archaeology and history, and it continues to do so by giving a platform to academicians and scholars, especially the younger ones. Mumbaikars love their city and its rich history, which is diverse and different from other parts of Maharashtra. Mumbai archaeologists have always tried to focus on ancient monuments like caves, temples, and artifacts. Modern historians focused more on colonial history, social reforms, people, and progress of the city as reflected through documents. However, the medieval history of Mumbai city before the arrival of Portuguese was not written systematically. It was Itihasacharya Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade who for the first time tried to bridge the gap between the ancient and modern periods of Mumbai. He published an untitled manuscript and named it as Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara in 1924. I started working on this manuscript 16 years back in 2009. I continued to work on this manuscript and got an opportunity to assist late Mr. A.P. Save, who was also working on this Bakhar. His book was published by the society 10 years back. Unfortunately, he did not publish his discovery, that is the Chinsidi manuscript of Bimbakhyāna. Fortunately, I got to study it. After 10 years in 2023, I discovered Lakshmana Prabhu's Śrī Biṁbākhyāna at the Bharat Itihas Samshodhak Mandal, Pune. And today, I am presenting my work as a tribute to Itihasacharya Rajwade. After 100 years, Mumbaikars will get to read the medieval history of Mumbai in English. Bimbakhyāna was not considered as a historical source for a long time by the South Bombay historians, especially by scholars of Portuguese history. For a long time, many people didn't know that Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara and Śrī Bimbakhyāna are one and the same. Rejecting stories in absence of material evidence is not wise. If such stories cannot be dated, scholars need to focus on dating the literary sources carrying it. It should be looked as part of culture and society. Our culture is an extension of our society, our history. With this book, I hope students and scholars of archaeology and history in Mumbai will now take Marathi sources seriously. This manuscript indicates that the medieval history of Mumbai was dominated by native and early migrant Marathi speakers before Mumbai became a modern cosmopolitan city. My research has allowed me to do a comparative study of 3 versions of this manuscript discovered by Rane, Rajwade, and Save, followed by discovery of this 4th manuscript, which is published in my book. This book has an introduction on Rajwade's contribution and chapters on political conditions of North Konkan, historicity of the Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara, history of the Patharik Kshatriyas and Yajurvedi Brahmins, and finally a chapter on Lakshmana Prabhu's Śrī Biṁbākhyāna. This book also has a list of more than 500 old Marathi, Perso-Arabic and English words used in the newly discovered manuscript, a table of place names with old and modern Marathi village names, a map of Sashti Island with exact village locations, and many more things. I hope this book will guide the BMC and Maharashtra government in use of old Marathi village names in official and public matters. Dr. A.P. Zamkhedkar had once told me to make my work unique by using Marathi terms instead of Hindi, as I was dealing with history of Mumbai and Maharashtra. I have followed his advice, and I hope with this book, non-Marathi speakers will also learn Marathi, as I have used diacritical marks for exact pronunciation of such words. Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara is the first literary source in Marathi which talks about the Maharashtra Dharma. And what can be better than having this book published in presence of a direct descendant of a historical figure, Sant Tukaram. And I must say, this is a rare yoga. Why? because Sant Tukaram's son, Toba or Narayan, had connected Bugaji Naik of Sardar Anzurkar family with Senapati Khanderao Dabhade, and the meeting was held in the Vithoba temple of Pandharpur, as mentioned in the Sashti Bakhara, and this is before 1737. I express my sincere gratitude to Bharat Itihas Samshodhak Mandal Pune for granting me permission to publish the manuscript in this book. I express my gratitude to Shri Panduranga Valkod and Mrs. Dharap and Mrs. Narkar of Bharat Itihas Samshodhak Mandal for their help with this task. I wish to express heartfelt thanks to my teachers, friends and scholars who have supported and mentored me along the way, including Dr. Suraj Pandit, Dr. Prachi Moghe, Dr. Madhavi Narsale, Dr. Shailendra Bhandare, Dr. Mrunalini Nevadkar. Throughout my research, the two Vileparle libraries, the S.V. Phatak Grantha Sangrahalaya and the Sathe College Library, have always been extremely important. I am grateful to the libraries of University of Mumbai Fort Campus, Rajwade Samshodhan Mandal Dhure, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics Pune, Heraz Institute Mumbai, and senior scholars and friends like Dr. Kumud Kanitkar, Dr. Kurush Dalal, late Shri Ashok Save, Mr. Mrinal Kapadia, Mr. Prashant Gharat, Mr. Amar Reddy, Mr. Milind Ramchandra Dhere, Srimati Leela Raute, Mr. Ramesh Rane, Mr. Pradeep Goregaonkar, Mr. Sadananda Gharat, Mr. Atharva Bedekar for lending their valuable photographs, giving permission for photography and supporting my work. I extend deep appreciation to Mr. Rutu Jadhav, my friend, for coming with me to RA Colony to locate newly found temple remains. I would especially like to thank Mr. Saurabh Bondre and Dr. Vispe Balaporia for proofreading this text. Also Ms. Sumita Anvekar for assisting me. I express my deepest appreciation to Apranta Publication Pune's Shri Parag Purandare, my publisher, for printing this book. I also thank his team members. I thank Dr. Zamkhedkar for his guidance, Dr. Aruna Dhere for writing a brilliant foreword, translator Saili Dhongde for translating it, Dr. More and Aniket Raj for attending this program in spite of their busy schedule, Mr. Akshay Savant for being part of this program, Dr. Nalwala and the Mumbai Research Centre team, Asiatic Society of Mumbai and its staff for organizing this program, my late mother, my sister Prachi Tai, my friends, family and readers for their encouragement, trust and support. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra. Now I request our today's special guest, Aniket Raj, to speak for 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
It is a real pleasure and honor to be speaking in front of you guys. I would like to thank the Asiatic Society for inviting me for this occasion. I think we can all agree that this is the most unique book inauguration that we all have attended. I think, Sandeep, you should enjoy this moment. I am sorry to say that I am not very proficient about the history of Bombay. In fact, I was discussing it with Akshay right now, who enlightened me about the very ancient and very myriad history that is of this city and of course this region. I am very delighted that Sandeep has launched this book, which I hope will throw more light and give us a little bit more perspective about what really happened pre-Shivaji Maharaj's time. In fact, there is a lot of history in general, I would say, in Maharashtra, pre-Shivaji time, that nobody seems to know about. I have always asked Akshay and Sandeep both that you should consider writing or at least researching about that part of history, and that part of especially history that belongs to my family. Because my family, there are varied theories of how we came to Maharashtra. We are originally Parmars from Dhar. We had to flee Dhar because of an invasion by Alauddin Khilji. We came here, settled in a small village called Nimrak, and that's how we got our surname. Naik is of course a title that was again conjecture either given to us by the Vijayanagara Empire or then by the Tughlaq Sultanate. This is something which I think you need to figure out. We were very closely related to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's family. We had about 9 generations of relationships with them. And of course we did support them, especially Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, for his fight against the Delhi Sultanate and of course the regional sultanates. I would like to say once again a lot of thank you and a lot of gratitude for calling me for this function, and I wish Sandeep and his new book the best of success and the best of luck. Thank you.
Now I request today's chief guest, Dr. More, to deliver his speech. Thank you. Yeah.
Honorable dignitaries on the platform, just in order to fulfill the formality, let me formally declare that the book written by Sandeep Dahisarkar, Shri Bimbakhyāna, is released. We congratulate him for this endeavor, and also let me thank the society for having encouraged such endeavors by the young generation. I am honored by the society. I would say twice. I was given a fellowship of this society a couple of years ago, and now an important book has been released by me at their invitation. In fact, it is really difficult to cover the topics and the themes and the material covered by Shri Dahisarkar in this book. The very name Śrī Biṁbākhyāna indicates something different, in the sense that at the same time the work is a continuation of traditional scholarship on the one hand, and on the other it breaks. In what sense does it break? It breaks from the tradition in this particular, in a way it is not a real break. It is a kind of restoration of the tradition, earlier tradition. That is to say, the work was really speaking named as Śrī Biṁbākhyāna. At the hands of historian V.K. Rajwade, it was categorized as a Bakhar. In fact, it is not Bakhar in the established sense of the word. But since Rajwade was such an impressive and major historian, that nobody challenged him that this is really speaking a kind of Akhyan and not a Bakhar in the real sense of the term. I must congratulate Dahisarkar for this thing only. This is enough, that at such an young age he is bold enough to show us a kind of mirror that, well, here some kind of mistake has been committed by honorable historian as Rajwade himself. So it was a kind of Akhyan. And let me tell you, the Akhyan connects you to tradition. We have a long tradition of Akhyan. In Puranas, in Mahabharata, and so, Ramayana, where not. Everywhere you will find a number of Akhyanas. Even if you go to some kind of Kirtan, there is Purvaranga and there is Uttaranga. But what is Uttaranga? Uttaranga is a kind of Akhyan which supports, really speaking, which illuminates, which explicates the Purvaranga, which is kind of something philosophical message in that. So this is really speaking a kind of restoration of the neglected tradition. Of course, Rajwade was, wise enough to say many things regarding what is Bakhar and what is Povada and what is etc. etc. But really speaking, he missed this important point. This is one thing. Although otherwise he was quite, committed to tradition. Another important thing is that he just gives the lineage of this whole. In fact, this is a kind of discourse which was originated long before Rajwade, long before, almost in 12th, 13th century, where there was a kind of invasion from the Islamic rulers and so forth. Twice at least, I mean, so far as this discourse is concerned. The next is more important from our own point of view. The first, I mean, Bimbba. Bimbba was a kind of name of the ruler. Now, there were two Bimbas, the first Bimbba and the second Bimbba. Now, in fact, so far as the history is concerned, we have always discussed the second part more than the first part, because there was a kind of explication of what is called Maharashtra Dharma. And the whole, you know, the whole weight, may I say, hinges of our historiography since Rajwade. In fact, since earlier, one can say, Rajwade, I mean Rane, or even before that, Rajaram Shastri Bhagwat, all those people, they made this Maharashtra Dharma as a focal point. But where did they find it? They found it in Ramdas, Maharashtra Dharma Vadavava. And right from the very first, you know, volume of what Rajwade brought about, there was a discussion of Maharashtra Dharma, and he emphatically said that, well, this is the sutra of Maratha history. There are, you know, two kinds of things, the Bhautika or external history, you can say, and internal history. So far as Maharashtra Dharma is concerned, it is internal history, it belongs to. And this kind of other things, which, I mean, the Mahims, etc., they belong to the next, I mean, the external history. And the point is that you cannot make sense of external history, physical history, if you fail to understand the internal history. Now, his whole criticism was against Grandup. Despite of whatever efforts he had taken, he pointed out that he didn't deserve to be an author of Maratha history because he simply failed to understand the internal principle which governed the Maratha history, and that was Maharashtra Dharma. And he found for the first time this Maharashtra Dharma as explained, not exactly, but only mentioned by Ramdas. And at that very time, it was Rajaram Shastri Bhagwat and then Nyayamurti Justice Rane who were talking of Maharashtra Dharma. Rajwade accepted all these things except one thing, that Rajwade, Rane and Bhagwat, they combine this discourse which Rajwade tried to highlight of Ramdas with the earlier sense. So Rajwade disagreed. That is a different story. But then he went on with this further and further with this discourse, and later on, at the almost flag end of his life, he found this kind of thing. Already it was published in something like 1876 or 7 by one Mr. Rane, and then it was Rajwade. So Rajwade named this then this Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. So the whole thing now, he found this word, the concept, you can say Maharashtra Dharma there too, and there could have been no person more happy or happier than Rajwade. In fact, what he had already said was a kind of, he found a kind of confirmation for this theory, his theory. And then he went on explaining it in the introduction to this Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. And then you can just imagine that the very period of that was, a kind of freedom movement had just started. And this something, definitely this kind of activities must have given a kind of strength, kind of support to that kind of freedom movement, so and so forth. So that was the whole story behind that. Then later on, people went on finding more and more manuscripts, etc., etc. And in fact, now our friend joins that whole silsila, one can say, of the whole discourse, wonderful discourse of Maratha history, that is Bimbakhyāna, or as it is known, Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. The more important achievement, perhaps one can say, so far as the modern times are concerned. We are always under the impression that this kind of thing which we recognize, acknowledge as Bombay or Mumbai, etc., was a creation of Western powers. First by Portuguese, and then of course by the Britishers. They made the headquarters. In fact, then later on it was translated or transformed into the very, economic center of India. true. I mean, we did not deny that kind of credit, that is development of this city to the Britishers and the other communities of that time. But really speaking, even before that, this whole thing was consisted of a kind of a kingdom in itself, however tiny you may say, it might be. And this is very wonderful. May I venture to say, if somebody comes and repeats what I wanted to say, what I want to say, I will be happy for that. What was that? See, so far as my knowledge is concerned, such a kind of history of almost 400 years in local language, okay, it is really impossible to find it in other languages and areas in India as such. So in a sense, this has something to do with the Indian scenario as such. The consciousness, historical consciousness is present in both of these authors, that Bhagwan Datta and then this gentleman who later on came forward with the Nayakas and tried to preach Maharashtra Dharma. That was a very interesting thing. And that historical consciousness was, he joined it to the tradition of Puranas, tradition of Vedas, tradition of religion. And in a sense, this is not simply a kind of historical document, it also gives you a larger cultural, religious, social, anthropological, ethnological, all those things, together. And this he could do because he was a genuine person, one must say this. So we must be thankful to these people, definitely, who wrote this, who authored this, and then we must be thankful. So far, look, may I point out to one thing, this kind of discourse, which was developed by Rajwade and other historians, you find it almost, so far as today is concerned, present is concerned, it is almost dying. I have to say this with pains. Here is a gentleman who had tried to revive it. And so we must appreciate, we must congratulate, and we must hope, and we must encourage, like Asiatic Society, such persons who come forward and they revive our own ancient discourse. I mean, it's not something, an exercise in itself. It's not a kind of entertainment. See, if we want to understand our present, really speaking, it is not possible to understand it without necessary reference to the past. And past, I mean, past is not limited to, Shivakal or even Naneshwar, etc., etc. It has its roots long back in our ancient history, and here we find all those things. In fact, many things can be said about this. I am myself a kind of, I don't proclaim to be a scholar, but I have studied Rajwade. I must say this in your presence. The Dhere Rajwade Samshodhak Mandal, they had published the Samagra Sahitya, so to say, of Rajwade, and this 10th volume consists of Prastavana Khanda. It includes all the Prastavanas which Rajwade wrote on his historical documents, collection of documents. And I had an honor to, or privilege to, or opportunity to write a kind of almost 100 pages introduction to that. So I had already covered all those things, but many things were new for me. And therefore, I congratulate Mr. Dahisarkar. I also wish him the best for his further research career. And I also hope from him, I mean, this is on behalf of all of you, that we all of us hope so many important things from you. Thank you so much.
I think our schedule got a little haywire with the sort of disturbance that was created outside. And I asked Sandeep just now, I thought you had asked me to begin by welcoming the guests who were here. And I think that got overlooked a bit. That's okay. The reason I wanted to stand before you, before the conversation begins, is actually to offer you, in my capacity as president, a profound apology for the disturbance that has occurred. Totally unexpected. They took us unawares, but we live in a democracy. Everyone has a right to protest, and I would grant them that right. But being part of the management, since they're claiming mismanagement, let me just clarify that our main mismanagement is our inability to settle some arrears that are owed to them. So the mismanagement is really something to do with the funding. So those of you who are regular visitors here, I'm sure will concur that on the whole, we are managing the society competently. A few people may have different opinions. Everyone is free to have their opinion. But today, I must say I was very embarrassed at this, and my apologies to Sandeep. I'm sorry that this had to happen when we were so looking forward to your book being released. And I think this is not a secret, but should be made known really to everybody, that we are struggling financially to stay alive. And my friend and colleague, who is the Honorary Secretary, is now afraid that we may have to close down unless the government really helps in funding us. And I may tell you that because of the earlier elections and now the assembly elections coming up, we have received no grant so far, either from Delhi, from the Ministry of Culture, or from the Maharashtra government. So for us, it is a struggle to just pay their salaries every month, and we are doing that with great difficulty. So it's not that we are not paying them their salaries. The salaries are their due, and we are trying every month with great difficulty to pay them. We are trying to keep our activities going. We are encouraging research, as you can see, and I'm sure Sandeep will grant that we have given him whatever encouragement he requires. So if they are claiming mismanagement, it is basically this: our inability to pay some arrears which had occurred at the COVID close down. Do you remember that for 2 years we closed down? We paid them, but we paid them a little less. I think in many organizations, no payments were even made. So we know that the staff has to also survive. We are on their side in that sense, and I really am very, very ashamed that today they chose to disrupt the events in this fashion, but that's where we are, and so please accept my sincere apologies.
And now we will be having in conversation Mr. Sandeep Dahisarkar with Mr. Akshay Chavan, author and co-founder, People Tree Stories. Please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now I would like to start this discussion on the Bimbakhyāna or the Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. So before that, for anybody who's being disturbed by the noise or something like that, I was just thinking as I was sitting here, we are history walas and we correlate everything to history. So I was just thinking that if we were sitting in the palace of Rājā Biṁba in Mahim, this is exactly the kind of noises we would be hearing. So let's imagine that, this is like a 3D installation of Mahikāvatīcī that we have created with the crumbles and people shouting slogans in the honor of Rājā Biṁba. So yeah, so this is like a time machine. So we have gone back time machine. Now coming to the place where we go in the past, in Mahikāvatīcī. So Sandeep, can you start by telling us what is this text? What is this text called the Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara? Sure. And what is the story behind it?
Okay. So as Dr. More mentioned in his speech,
Salutation to Rājā Biṁba.
Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara is something, a text which was untitled, and it was actually discovered by Mr. Divekar of Kalyan, and he gave it to Mr. Rajwade to study it. And Rajwade was the one who renamed this particular title as Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. Okay, and if you see, this particular Bakhar is in prose and poetry format. And if you see this particular Bakhar, the history starts from 1138 CE and ends with the arrival of Portuguese in Daman in 1512. Okay, and it was written in different phases by different authors, including Keshavacharya and Bhagwan Datta. And we are so fortunate to have a descendant of Keshavacharya here, Ms. Chitra Acharya. So please stand. So this is for people who always have refused Marathi sources, that it's not historical. So we have a person from the past who has written this text, and their descendants are still living in Mumbai. And this Bakhar was written, as I said, in different stages from mid 15th century onwards, and was completed in late 16th century. Okay, and as I said, it starts with Rājā Biṁba. So this Biṁba, there are two Bimbas. One is Pratap Biṁba from Champaner, and second Biṁba is the Yadava Biṁba, son of Ramdev Rao Yadav. Now, Pratap Biṁba, when he conquered this whole region after Shilahara, or during Shilahara rule itself, he conquered the region from Daman to Wadkeshwar, and he sent his minister Balakrishna Somavamshi to conquer the whole region till Wadkeshwar. And when he conquered the whole thing, the whole area, he invited his son Mahim-Biṁba. As you see, this Biṁba is last name, whereas the Yadava Biṁba is the name, proper name of the person. Okay, so Mahim-Biṁba comes here, and with him around 66 families migrated. Okay, and out of these 66 families, I had identified 29 families with their last names and their present village native names in my first book, a part of which I have reproduced in this particular book. Now, these 66 families migrated in the Salsette island. In Sanskrit, Salsette is Shatashashti, if you see the Shilahara records. In Marathi, it becomes Sahasashti and Sashti, which is a group of 66 villages. Similar formation of group of villages can be found in Goa. There is Goa Sashti as well. So it was an administrative unit, and the capital, or the, you can say something like that, was Sopara of this particular administrative unit. If you see Mirashi's Shilahara inscriptions, you'll get this information. Now, these families migrated, stayed here, and there was this Desai of Malad who belonged to the Patharik Kshatriya community. This family still lives in Malad, and in his dream comes this goddess and says to him to unite all his people, and this happens during the Islamic rule. And then this goddess orders him to write this, get this manuscript written, and in a sabha, for the first time, Keshavacharya writes the first part of this Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. Okay, and around...
And just to add to that, this is outside the Jogeshwari caves, right?
Yes, because the Desai's Kulaswamini was Jogeshwari and very closely located to Malad. So he built a mandap, more than 3,000 people gathered, 521 Vrittivantas, Purohits, Joshis, all sorts of Brahmins, Upadhyas have gathered, and in their presence, this particular manuscript was written. This story is mentioned by Keshavacharya himself in the Bakhar. And they have created 66 copies. So, 66 families, 66 group of villages, that is Sashti, Sahasashti, and 66 copies. So in a way, this number 66 is not a mere coincidence. Yeah.
So now, what is so fascinating about this manuscript is that most of us growing up would have read that, the history of Bombay / Mumbai begins with the Catherine of Braganza. And this manuscript, I heard about it just say 5 to 6 years back. There was something called Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara, and as I dug deeper, it just blew my mind, because this is like a complete black hole in Mumbai's history. But for the longest time, this was considered a poem or a bakhar or a work of fiction. So why was that?
Well, there was no direct evidence, archaeological evidence available at that time. And when the Salsette exploration projects happened, there was this Mr. Salunke who discovered the inscription, BARC inscription in the BARC premises, and then there were various scholars who contributed an article in the Asiatic Society's journal on that inscription. So that inscription is of Hambir Rao, and it belongs to the period, we can say, of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. He was the vassal of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. And for the first time, we have many written sources which talk about the name Bimbasthāna in literary sources. But this was the first archaeological source, an inscription mentioning name of Mahim as Bimbasthāna. Okay, so when we say, was Mumbai really Mumbai, or was it a Bimbasthan? So when it says Bimbasthan, it also confirms that Bimba existed, because all inscriptions are official records coming from the royal family. So one has to then look into it deeper. Of course, we need to get more evidences to prove whatever had happened in past, and of course whatever is written in Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara or Bimbakhyāna. But this inscription was a total game changer, and people, especially studying the colonial history and mostly Portuguese history, have stopped commenting on this after this inscription was discovered. Followed by that, I feel what I took as a second step was, I identified different families from, these are mostly the Kshatriya families. Of course, there are Brahmin families, around 9 families from Yajurvedi community. They have also been mentioned, but their Devi Gotras were not mentioned. But with this identification, the Devi Gotras helped me a lot to identify each and every surname. And thanks to Pathare Kshatriyas being so educated, they had documented whole of their information previously in their census records. Yeah.
So one very fascinating thing when I was reading the Dhere's version was the names of places like Bhandop, Mulund, even Are. Like I always thought Are was a very modern name, but to imagine that, Are is contemporary to the Byzantine Empire or Alauddin Khilji of Delhi was amazing. So now this actual book, it gives us a glimpse into the Bhandaris, the salt makers and all of that. So while we have the 3D installation outside to give you a sense of how, the sights and sounds of Mahikāvatī would have been at that time, how was life? What do we know of the life in Mahikāvatī of that time?
Okay, so I must say this particular manuscript is actually written in the Pauranic style, as Dhere calls it, and it is a Hindu manuscript written by the Hindus for Hindus to unite Hindus, and it is something where only the upper class is mostly described. Okay, because they were the stronghold of the empire at that time. Of course, there are many other communities mentioned, not just Somavamshi Kshatriyas, Suryavamshi Kshatriyas or Yajurvedi Brahmins, but also the Patharvats, also the Ivadnyas, the Modha community, okay, the merchant class. So what interesting for me is, just to start with the Kshatriya part, these people, they migrated as Somavamshi and Suryavamshi Kshatriyas. But in later period, you see 4 major castes getting developed out of these 2 Kshatriya groups which had migrated together. The first one is Pathare Kshatriya, Patskalshi. Second is Pathare Prabhu. Now this word Pathare is very confusing. People, even Rajwade calls Pathare Prabhu, but very less information is available in Bimbakhyāna or Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara on Pathare Prabhu. It is actually Pathare Kshatriya Patskalshi. So Pathare Kshatriya Patskalshi, Pathare Prabhu, Suryavamshi Kshatriya. They have a very beautiful hall in Dadar. Then the fourth one is Somavamshi Kshatriya Patskalshi. So there are 2 Patskalshi groups, The second one comes from Chinsani Tarapur. The big community group comes from Virar to Chaul. The Pathare Prabhus were restricted only to South Mumbai, and Suryavamshi Kshatriyas again Palghar region. So these new communities were formed, and especially during Islamic invasion or even their rule, these people changed their professions. Pachkalshis became carpenters, Suryavamshi Kshatriyas and Vadavas accepted agriculture, Prabhus were into higher ranking official jobs, mostly clerical jobs. So everything changed. Kshatriyas were not Kshatriyas, they had to change their occupation because of the invasion. And most interesting part in this is the carpentry aspect. There is a surname similar to Parsis, which is Vadia. The Pachkarshis, Pathare Kshatriyas also have this surname Vadia. Vadia means a shipbuilder. And during Rājā Biṁba's time, as we know from a manuscript, it says that two Vadia brothers came from Chaul to educate the Hindus in the Mahikāvatīcī or Mahim-Bimbasthāna region, and they requested the king to give them more people to assist them and make more ships to protect the kingdom. So he appoints two people, Kodamba and Shidamba lineage peoples. Now this, as a Pachkalshi myself, I was very fascinated with these two names because we have two goddesses, Kolambika and Shilambika or Shilai. And these two goddesses, both of them are located in Nashik. So this is very interesting. If you read my first book, I have also discussed the Kolambika ritual in that particular book. So anyways, for getting back here again, this was all about Kshatriyas. Talking about Patharvats and stone carpenters or the carvers or masons. In history, which is dominated by upper caste class people, you don't see common man's life being depicted in such records. But we do find some interesting information in form of archaeological materials, for example, or even inscriptions. If you see Kanheri cave number 3 inscription, the stone carvers are called Shelavadki or stone carpenters. And then we also see masons' marks in form of on the stone fragments of temples. Each family had a different sign and mark, which I have also given the photographs in my book of these masons' marks. And this means that during Shilahara Yadava period or even after that, such masons were, they worked on contract basis. They carved temples and earned money. So we also get these small things, but they are really very important when it comes to social life and economic life as well. Then one more, just to conclude this question. I also talked about Modh community, which was merchant community. Mostly they are Gujaratis. So luckily, one Surya image in marble was discovered in Sopara, and it has an inscription saying that this particular image was donated by so-and-so person from Modh community for a temple near XYZ Tirtha. So this archaeological evidence also helps us confirm that Modh community also lived in Mumbai or near Mumbai. Yeah.
Now, you have done some phenomenal work on, say, documenting the fragments in Juhu. Then there are places such as Goregaon, Mud Island, Bihar, Pavai. So there are just so many medieval fragments from the time period from this book, just strewn across. You might just find it next to a footpath, where something is being worshipped or something like that. So can you just tell us what is available around us in this city?
So what was exciting was, you see the somewhat intact Ambarnath temple with a broken shikhara. And then there are so many temple fragments in Mumbai, especially in Salsette Island. They're scattered all around, in Marod, in Juhu, in Mud, in RA colony, then in Malad, then again somewhere near Mahim again, then some are in Mazgaon, some are in Gaudevi, and they are in form of some sculptures which are part of the exterior wall of the temples, and some are shikhara pieces, some are kichakas, the pillar capital brackets. So what has happened to these temples? Why are these not mentioned in the Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara? That was the first question in my mind. And the interesting part is about mud is you have 3 monuments mentioned in this particular Bakhar or in this text. First is the Brahmakunda, second is Mukteshwara temple, and third is the Harba Devi. Now there is a story. This text actually have documented such monuments which are connected to certain historic incidences or events which had happened in the past. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to prove that these things had happened in the past, but these are the stories which are available and we cannot simply ignore them. Okay, and of course there is this story where this Bhagat Suri, who was appointed as the administrator of the last Hindu king, Nagar Shah, as mentioned in this text. He was appointed as an administrator, and he would tax people, he would rape women, and he had once gone to seek blessings of this goddess of Harba, which was his Kulaswamini, and he was native to Paithan, by the way. So he went to Brahmakunda to take the sacred bath. Then he would take darshan at Mukteshwara temple and go to Harba Devi and visit the temple for the jatra, on occasion of a jatra. So he had killed the Desai of Malad's father, Soma Desala, and his son, who is just 12-year-old, takes revenge of his father. So, I mean, this story is very Bollywoodish, filmy story, and the mother who's pregnant runs away to Bhainder, then goes to Bhiwandi, then this boy is born, then the community celebrates his birth, and this Bhagat Suri comes to know. Till then it was a secret that she has fled to Bhiwandi, and then he comes to know, and then he kills his father. And Bhagat Suri kind of helps Nika Malik, is another villainous character mentioned in this text, and everything changes. The Desla is killed, Bhagat Suri becomes Desla himself, and then the Nagar Shah in a way supports this young boy's ambition of becoming Desla and killing Bhagat Suri, because Nagar Shah himself was so disturbed by this notorious character, and then the person is killed. So this was all about.
So you can write a script on the web series on Bhagat
Yeah, I
Suri.
think I
That's
should
my favorite
try.
Okay, coming to my last question. So what you have done is just a beginning, and there is just so much more work to be done on Bimbakhyana or Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. So if there would be students or researchers who want to work on it, I mean, would you like to say something, or are there any works which you think need to be explored deeper, aspects of this manuscript?
See, like Dr. Aruna Dhere has said, more work needs to be done on the gods and goddesses mentioned in this particular text. Fortunately or unfortunately, a part of it has been covered in my first book through Kolambika and Shilai. But see, if you need more information, you cannot just simply say this temple is located here, it has 4 hands, she wears this mukuta, she is standing with her vahana, holding this weapon and that. That is the basic information, and just from observation point of view, you need a concrete evidence, not just from point of rituals, from point of culture. Is she or he part of a certain community only? Is that god or goddess is part of some village god or a Kula Devata? In case of Harba Devi, she is mentioned as Grama Devata, and she also happens to be the Kula Devata of few Kshatriya families, even Kolis. So that is very interesting. This aspect needs to be looked from this angle, not just observers' documentation. One needs to go beyond that.
Thank you, Sandeep, so much. Should we take one or two questions in case anybody?
Yeah,
has?
please.
Hello, I'm Rahul Chemburkar, and I think I feel proud that I'm a Paskarship Sandeep. Okay, I stand here not to ask a question, but express my gratitude to Sandeep. He's an old friend, because I think, Sandeep, what you have done is that you have broken a lot of myths, which were not broken and taken for granted, and you have started that process of reclaiming history from the European point of view, which was taken for granted. And this, for specific this region, I think this is very important, reclaiming history, which I think in a humble capacity, I can use the word in Dr. More's front, that it is parallel or similar to reclaiming that concept of Maharashtra Dharma. I think I see this very important, and we all actually are in depth, and I think it is our moral responsibility in our humble capacity to take this ahead from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think Renu had raised her hand.
So congratulations, Sandeep.
Thank you, Renu.
And your last comment about taking evidence of cultural things and just not being an observatory kind of approach. So what was the greatest challenge you faced when you were doing this? Because provenance is very key to any what you just mentioned. So, and the cultures keep changing, the rituals keep changing over a period of time.
Well, thankfully I had all three versions. So there are, as I said, 66 manuscripts. Only 3 were published. This is the 4th one, but this is very different from what the other 3 manuscripts are. The first, as Dr. More mentioned, it was published by R.P. Rane of Juhu in 1877. Second was published by Rajwade in 1924. Third was not published but discovered by A.P. Save in 2013-14. So my work is basically a comparative study of all 3 major works, 3 manuscripts, and these are partly prose and poetic, whereas the Lakshmana Prabhu's Bimbakhyāna, which I have found, is a fully versified or poetic version of the manuscript. So my challenge, this challenge was very different from what you see others doing. Like, for example, talking about the gods and goddesses, very less information is available from where these gods and goddesses have come. Okay, it is generally believed that when people migrate, they bring their gods and goddesses, but we don't know what exactly the tradition is. Okay, we know that particularly 2 things I have discussed in this book. I have specifically chosen the Pathare Kshatriya Pachkalshis and Yajurvedi Brahmins because when the Kshatriyas were migrated from Champaner, they came via Paithan and then came to Mumbai. But the Brahmins came from Paithan only. And these are Yajurvedi Brahmins. Why these Brahmins were invited? Because the Kshatriyas followed Katyayani Sutra and they followed Yajurveda. And that's the reason why the Paurahitya has to be managed by these specific Brahmins only. And that's the reason they were brought. So you don't need Kokanastha Brahmins, you don't need Karhade Brahmins, you don't need other kinds of Brahmins. It is only Yajurveda. Shukla Yajurvedi, Madhyan Din Brahmins only were needed for this. And that's the reason why these 9 families came here. So they also managed Sheshavamshi Kshatriyas who are now Bhandaris. Then Somavamshi and Suryavamshi Kshatriyas. So we need to see what kind of tradition it was. What is Katyayani Sutra? How is Yajurveda connected to their daily life? How is it part of the rituals? How is it part of the temple rituals? How is it part of their family gods and goddesses? Why Harba Devi is both village goddess and family goddess? So these questions need to be answered. And I think maybe it will take 100 years more to discover these evidences, because Rajwade was not knowing what Rane did in 1877, and then there are many people who don't know Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara and Bimbakhyāna were in the same. So aisa bhi hai. So it will take time. We need, let's pray that Mumbai also redevelops very fast, so that the government will only excavate for us and unearth all these evidences, like how the Parel Shiva was found. Okay, something similar may happen and we'll get something more of. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, Mangala ma'am had a question.
Sorry, Mangala. Yeah, sorry, President before Honorary Secretary. I think what your response to Renu just shows that research is never ending.
Yes.
That you will find one thing which will throw up something else, which will throw up and so. And I think that's what we at the Asiatic like to promote, this sort of research. So good luck to you in your research. I also have a remark about...
They heard you.
What Mr. When I spoke earlier, I apologize. You know, if I had waited to hear what you said, that it created the atmosphere, then I would have said, Sandeep, I have organized this. And it would have, so it's also a question of perspective.
Right, right.
Thank you for your remark.
Yes, now Mangala ma'am.
Congratulations, that was very fascinating and
Thank you,
interesting. One thing I can't understand is how was the Bimbakhyāna neglected for so long? I mean, nobody seemed to realize the connection between this and the work Rajwade had done. And how did you come across those 3 manuscripts of Bimbakhyāna that you talked about?
Very interesting question.
And one more thing is a statement. What you said, these lesser known communities have to be studied. I know what I'm saying because my mother is a Kokanastha Brahmin and my father is a Patare Prabhu. Yeah. So, yes. So, my mother always said, you have no history. We have a history. Amchi Ambabai. And our Parao, our goddess, was Vardzai. Our old house was called Vardzai Ashram. But my grandmother, everybody else never knew who this goddess was. And whereas the Ambabai from Kolhapur, well, everything is known about her. So you're very right, these goddesses must be studied. These lesser known communities must be put on the map. They also have a history, they also have a past, and they have generally been neglected. It's a caste hierarchy also, like my mother saying, Tumchi ka tumsa itihas nahi hai. You understand? So I find what you've done very, very fascinating and interesting. Continue with this research. But my first question, do answer it. How come this Bimbakhyāna was neglected? Before
I answer your first question, let me answer the second half. Now, every goddess is like Kolambika, she's in Nashik, Gangadwar. The families who worship this particular goddess, they still make a rangoli, which is in form of a mandala. And they put their naivedyas and they offer a bali. Okay. And only Kolambika followers are allowed to participate. Even though if you are a Pathare Kshatriya, you won't be allowed to participate. You need to be a Kolambika follower only, and then you can have the prasad. Okay, you're not allowed to eat the prasad till then. But we need to look from this angle also, from iconographic point of view, the literature point of view, and their connection with the ritual. Now about the first question. R.P. Rane, Raghunath Putharaji Rane of Zuhu, who owned most of the lands of Zuhu at that time, he published his family copy of Bimbakhyāna in 1877. He was the first one. And in his, can say, preface, he talks about there are many people who still have these manuscripts. Even the East Indian community people maintained such manuscripts. So this is a very interesting observation which he have documented, that even the Christians, the people who were converted in the Portuguese period, they still have these manuscripts. So it means they were still continuing with their tradition, family tradition, and they maintained it. Then, of course, this first manuscript was not very easy to find. Thanks to Mr. A.P. Save, I got a copy from him. I was assisting him. Second copy was published by Rajwade, though it was not available easily. My college library had it, so I got a copy of that. And again, Chinsadi manuscript, which was discovered by Save, I got another copy from him. So thanks to Mr. Save, I could also continue with my research. And the most important part of this Chinsadi manuscript is, talking about even the Pachkalshis more, it has a unique chapter in it, which is not in Rane's manuscript, it is not in Rajwade's manuscript. It talks about making the Pachkalshi Simhasana. Okay, and who will make this Pachkalshi Simhasana? Only the Kolamba and Shidamba followers, with a particular type of tree, and certain rituals were performed. The Brahmin couple was first worshipped on that Simhasana, and only then this Simhasana becomes, can be used by these Kshatriya couples for their marriages. The word Pachkalshi is like an honor bestowed only on the Pathare Kshatriyas, not on Pathare Prabhus, not on Suryavamshi Kshatriyas, not on any other Kshatriya, like Chaukalshis. They are Chaukalshis. We are Pachkalshis. It's a difference of one Kalasha. So we don't know how the Simhasana looked like, but we know that it was a Simhasana with 5 Kalashas and a Chhatra and a Dhwaja, which is a flag. The Chaukalshis used 4 Kalasha Simhasana with a different color flag. Okay, all details are given in this book. And there is a very beautiful Marathi Mahan, Pachkalshi Kon Mhanel Alshi, maybe because the community was more hardworking when it comes to carpentry and all their laborious work which they did. And this is something which is very interesting for me. Why Pathare Prabhu history is only colonial period history? Why there is no medieval connection? What was happening with the Pathare Prabhus? What was happening with Suryavamshi Kshatriyas? So these questions need to be answered. By Mr. Velkar, but it is more colonial. We don't see anyone maintaining copper plates given by Rājā Biṁba, no sanads available, nothing. But these needs to be found. There is one very important evidence documented by Mr. Velkar in his Pathare Prabhunsa Itihas, that when the Peshwas tried to punish Pathare Prabhus, this is during Savai Madhavrao's period, the Pathare Prabhus sent their copper plates given or issued by Rājā Biṁba to Sringeri Shankaracharya and to help prove their innocence and prove that they are Kshatriyas. So this is very interesting information from 18th century, 18th century, that copper plates were there available, but we don't have it now. Similarly, the Desai of Malad, there used to be a copper plate with the family, but it is said that some scholar, probably a Brahmin, came to their house and took away, and we don't know who the scholar is. And we don't have any photo or something of this copper plate, unfortunately. But such evidences existed, but they are not found yet. Then again, there was another honorary fellow of Asiatic Society. His name is Rao Bahadur Purushottam Balakrishna Joshi. He also had a copy of Bimbakhyāna, but we don't know where it is now. Okay. I think there was someone else in this. Saurabh. Hello.
So you said that there was an invasion, Muslim invasion, and the Kshatriyas changed their profession, original profession.
Yes.
Some went to the carpentry, some went to agriculture and that thing. So what is the reason for that? Was the original profession they were in was taken up by the other community, so there is no space to do that, and then this migration?
See, invasions changed a lot, but more than Islamic invasion, I feel the Portuguese troubled all these communities. We find many broken temples, as we were discussing, but we don't know who exactly destroyed these temples, except Mandapeshwar we know that Portuguese destroyed. Then there are many temples in Vasai which were also destroyed. In their place, a church was installed. But in case of the Salsette Island temples, we don't find any church coming up on their side. these are simply broken temples. But so we don't have any information on them. But we surely know that Mandapeshwar and all these temples were broken by them. Talking about people, these people were the upper class, so-called upper class, controlled majority of this land. So the Inami lands introduced by British people, it is completely a different concept. Before these people, the Hindus controlled everything here. So when you read Sashti Bakhara, so there was a deal with the Peshwa Bajirao, and that's how Chimnaji Appa had come here. That if you protect us, our dharma, and give back us our land, we will acknowledge your supremacy and your rule, and your dhwaja will be our banner. So Chimmaji Appa had promised you will get back your watans, you will get back your lands. Peshwa Bajirao had promised that you will get your lands back. But both of them, I believe, died in 1740, and Nana Sahib Peshwa came on the throne, and he rejected Anzurkar Naik, Malad of Desai's proposal, and even Antaji Raghunath Kavade of the Yajurvedi Brahmin community to return their watans. So this is how things changed. So they lost their watans, they changed their profession because most of them worked as administrative people. For example, the Chogles of Babhai, the Desais of Malad, the Desais of Maror, then there are Mantris of Varadi. So these are all administrative positions, and each of these families is specifically connected to a village. Unlike Pathare Prabhus, they lived in Wadis. But the Puros or Puravs of Malavani, so there is a specific family staying in a specific village. And this is also the same thing happening in Saul, Adhikaris of Saul, which is a similar position to Desai of Malad. So these things changed. So their authority was challenged, their lands were confiscated, their profession was changed. What will they do? They have to survive. So they protected their dharma, some migrated to other parts and changed their profession, but they remained pure by their caste. Talking about Pachkarishis, there is very interesting information in the last part of the Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara. The Bimba tells this Kolamba and Shidamba families to accept carpentry to save and protect the kingdom, but you won't become carpenter, you will still be a Kshatriya, you will not lose your caste. We don't find such evidences connected to Somavamshi Kshatriya Vadavad community and Suryavamshi community. Though we get few hints of these people practicing agriculture here, but there is no acceptance of these professions seen in this text. Yes. Thank you.
Sir, there is a temple in Kolhapur.
Temple in?
Kolhapur.
Huh?
Where if you go and take a wish,
Huh?
it is fulfilled.
मी नवाज बोलू का मग तिकडे?
Yes. Because somebody's wish was fulfilled and I had to take that person there.
Wow. Then I should wish for more archaeological evidences to prove.
That person won the Miss Asia Beauty Contest crown.
Okay, wow.
Her name is Yukta Mukhi.
Okay. Oh, wow. Then I should try for Bharat Ratna.
After she won the crown, I took her to Kolhapur.
Let's connect after this session.
And that is how I came to know about the importance of that temple in Kolhapur.
We are surely meeting after this session. No comments on that.
I also have a question.
I've studied the Pathare Prabhu. They're still trying to say we are warriors. Look at their names. Bhairava, Purandar, Tirukekar. How come? Gadaya, Taradhar, Bhairava, all these names.
Yeah, I had a question. So
Yes.
you mentioned that there's mention of some lower caste communities.
Correct.
So what sources would you suggest to study their history? Like the communities
It's a
from
good
Bombay.
question. Unfortunately, we don't have much of evidence. Because, see, as I said, Bimbakhyāna was is a Hindu text which was written by upper class for upper class. However, they have also mentioned names of certain communities which had migrated with these people. So they have done only that much. Apart from that, there is one story, as I said, Desai of Malad, where the Koli wants to become a Pachkalshi or Pathare Kshatriya. He tries to enter the Kshatriyahood. But that claim was rejected by a king. And it is all written in the book, you can refer that. But we don't have any solid evidence on what happened about these people and what was their social life like. So we don't have that information. But these people are mentioned, they were surely here.
On behalf of the Mumbai Research Centre, it's my privilege to give a vote of thanks. Thank you, Sandeep. It has been an extremely fascinating evening, but very insightful discussion full of new perspectives. And I thank our chief guest, Sadanand More, who has shown how this book is important, how it's actually a continuation of earlier traditions, and linked it up with Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara, which we were proud of publishing 10 years ago. We had Mr. Save here. I also thank Mr. Raj for coming, Aniket Raj, who has got this rich past, which his lineage, which goes back to Shivaji. And it was very nice of you to spend so much time and be with us. And then the discussion in conversation with Mr. Akshay Chavan. I must say the questions that you asked were very stimulating and led to more questions. That's how it should be. And we're very proud of Sandeep Dahisarkar and his book, Śrī Bimbakhyāna, because he goes to, he continues our tradition. What is the Asiatic Society? It's basically research oriented. And when one of our members writes a book, we are indeed very proud. And what you have given us is, as Mr. More pointed out, the archaeological, historical, and various other dimensions of Mahikāvatīcī Bakhara linked to Bimbakhyāna, which we would all like to read. In which language is it written? Bimbakhyāna, Marathi. So, and also it's bringing, and what you said about Mr. Why did you write it in English? I didn't ask you that question. But even what Mr. Jamkhedkar said, that instead of Hindi words, you have integrated Marathi words, because after all, we are in Maharashtra. So, as I say again, thank you very much. I thank our audience, I thank our staff, and give us more books of research like this. Thank you very much, chief guest and other guests who have come.